Hi, my name is Aston and I have been conducting research in the field of parapsychology for my honours degree under my supervisor, Dr. Natasha Tassel-Matamua. My research is titled Empathy and Extrasensory Perception. It is a quantitative study that aims to investigate the relationship between empathy and extrasensory perception and to assess whether beliefs, behaviours, and personality characteristics play a role in moderating this relationship. I have chosen this topic as I personally have had numerous experiences throughout my life that have made me wonder whether there is more to the process of detecting another person's emotion through our usual five senses. And I happened to discover some fascinating research that is being done that has made me feel it is worth investigating formally in an academic institution. This research I'm talking about was done by Roland McCratty and colleagues at the Institute of Heart Math in the US. And what they have found is that they've been able to measure a toroidal field of electromagnetic energy surrounding the heart. This field changes according to our emotions and has been measured up to several feet away from our body using squid magnetometers. Now, this distance, they believe, is due to the limitations of our technology, and they feel that as our technology advances, that they will be able to measure this field from greater distances up to a quarter of a mile. This field is up to 60 times stronger electrically and up to 5,000 times stronger magnetically than the field that they have measured around the brain. It is able to penetrate all the cells in our body and be detected by others within its range of communication. So I question whether this field is involved in the communication of emotions. Other interesting findings indicate that we perceive information about our world using extrasensory perception. For example, scientists have found that organs within our body react to upcoming emotional events up to 10 seconds prior to the event happening. Using psychophysiological measures, they have found that skin, facial muscles, the gut, and the brain respond on average 3 to 6 seconds prior to an emotional event happening. Interestingly, the heart reacts first up to 10 seconds prior to the emotional event happening, suggesting its role as a sensory organ that informs the rest of the body via communication with the brain. So these findings implicate we possess an extrasensory perception, as perception through our usual five senses would require that the event had already happened in order to perceive it. So these are just a few examples of a number of experiments that have been conducted for over a century, which provide evidence that we are expressing and receiving information about the world around us through means beyond our regular five senses, which involve the perception of strong forces such as sight or light and sound. And that by shutting down these senses, which is done using methods such as the Ganzfeld technique, we open up our perception to more subtle forces in our environment. Before we get into the method and results, I'll just take a moment to quickly define our key constructs, starting with empathy. So empathy is defined in the Oxford Dictionary as the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Now, this can be done by one of two means. One is by the intellectual identification and reasoning of another's feelings, which is what we call cognitive empathy. And the other way is to feel what the other person's feeling. So it's the actual experience of the emotions, including the visceral and physiological sensations of the emotion, and this is what we term affective empathy, and the two are not mutually exclusive. The current understanding of how we process empathy, and in particular affective empathy, is through covert mimicry of body posture and facial expressions. Now, I'm not suggesting that this isn't the case, rather that we have additional means of perceiving others' emotions beyond the perception of the ordinary five senses, which covert mimicry would require. Extrasensory perception, if you haven't worked out already, involves the awareness of information about events external to the self, not gained through the five senses, sight, hearing, touch, taste and smell, and is not deducible from previous experience. Now, as we get into the method and findings, I'm going to use the term psi, which is the term scientists in the field use for subtle energy we are perceiving with extrasensory perception. And it got its name because it is the energy involved in psychic phenomena. Other common terms for psi outside of the field of parapsychology are prana, chi, and reiki energy. So let's look at the method. The survey was a questionnaire that took approximately 20 to 30 minutes to complete online. and consisted of a series of scales and subscales, together with questions asking to identify beliefs, experiences, and behaviours relating to the subject. Participation was voluntary and there was no remuneration. However, I did offer the chance to win a $100 supermarket voucher to a randomly selected participant as a token of appreciation. Recruitment used a snowballing method using email and social media, and a brief mention on a scheduled appearance I happened to have on the Good Morning show. The reality TV show I was in at the time kindly posted my advertisement on their social media campaign, enabling me to reach New Zealanders both here and in Australia, along with a few around the rest of the world. I had an excellent response to the recruitment drive, with 435 volunteers starting the survey, but since many of them were Australians that, despite reading the eligibility criteria of needing to be over 18 and a New Zealand citizen or resident that is proficient in English, they still thought they'd try their luck. This meant that after screening out and drop-offs, I was left with 256 completed surveys, which I further truncated to a pool of 206 participants who had completed most questions. So what was included in the survey? Existing research found that certain personality traits such as extroversion and openness to experience influence one's belief in or ability to perceive psi. I was interested in replicating these existing findings and looked at the relationship between personality factors, empathy, and extrasensory perception using the Big Five inventory to measure the 5 factors of personality: extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, neuroticism, and openness. For measures of empathy, I included 2 subscales of the Interpersonal Reactivity Index and the Toronto Empathy Questionnaire. The Toronto Empathy Questionnaire I used to give what I call a total empathy scale, as it included both affective and cognitive empathy. The 2 Interpersonal Reactivity Index subscales I used were the empathic concern and perceived distress subscales, which were more related to affective empathy, and thus I combined to give a score of affective empathy. Now, as extrasensory perception involves perceiving subtle energy, I hypothesised that those who have a high degree of body awareness were more likely to believe or report an experiencing psi. Therefore, I included the scale of body connection, which is 2 subscales: body awareness and dissociation. I included the belief in paranormal scale, which contains 7 questions rating the extent to which one believed in a range of paranormal phenomena. I devised a range of questions asking whether one believed in or had experienced extrasensory perception and various other psychic phenomena. These were combined, depending on the nature of the question, to give a belief score, experience score, and ability score. So let's look at the findings. First of all, an overwhelming majority believed in extrasensory perception, with 77.4% of the 199 participants who answered this question believing that there is such a thing as extrasensory perception. However, when I asked whether you believe you have extrasensory perception, of the 200 that answered this question, 48% were prepared to admit that they felt they possessed ESP, while 52% said no. I asked the participants how many senses they felt they had, and the results were quite interesting. Of the 201 participants that answered, 3.5% felt that we had 4 senses. 37.3% felt that we had 5 senses, 34.8% felt that we had 6 senses, 15.4% selected the 7 senses option, and 9% opted for other and to state their answer. Some of these participants kindly counted their senses to give very specific answers of 9, 14, 15, around 20 and 24, while others gave descriptions of the answers. It's not surprising that we got some don't knows or unknowns. One said it depends on the definition of the sense. Someone else kindly told me to research multiple senses. And of course there's always one that said, what a stupid question. But of those we could quantify as stating as having either less than 5, 5 senses, more than 5, or that they don't know, we get a majority of 56.6% who believe they have more than 5 senses, while only 37.9% believe we have our usual 5 senses that is currently accepted in conventional science and medicine. Now, when it comes to sensing others' emotions with extrasensory perception, I felt the common term for this was vibe, and when I asked if you believed people had vibes, 82.4% said yes, people do have vibes. And when asking if you can feel another person's vibe, 81.4% said yes. So I thought I'd cut straight to the point and outright ask if you believe you can sense someone else's emotions without looking at or hearing them. And of the 200 that answered the forced choice response of yes or no, 57.5% said yes versus the 42.5% that said no. And I asked this question in another way, which was, do you think that you can communicate emotions using extrasensory perception? Without forcing choice this time, of the 200 participants that answered this question, 38.5% said yes, 30.5% said no, and 31% said don't know. So it seems that no matter how many ways we ask, the majority of the people believe that yes, there is such a thing as extrasensory perception, and yes, we do give some kind of energy based on our emotions, and that yes, we can detect that energy containing information about others' emotions or vibes through means other than our 5 senses. So let's look at the bivariate analysis. The most interesting finding, perhaps, is age. It seems that as we age, we are more likely to have experiences in psychic phenomena as well as believe in psychic phenomena. There are some interesting findings in ethnicity. Interestingly, New Zealand Europeans, Maori and Pacific Islanders are more likely to believe and experience psi than other Europeans and other ethnicities from around the world. Looking at empathy, I hypothesized that given the nature of these questions and that it involves sensing subtle energy through physical sensations in the body, that effective empathy would be strong, have a stronger relationship with the variables investigated than total empathy, which we measured through the Toronto Empathy Questionnaire. It actually wasn't correlated significantly with any of our core core constructs related to believing in or experiencing psi, or believing in extrasensory perception, or that we can communicate emotions with extrasensory perception. So for the remaining of the analysis, I primarily used the Toronto Empathy Questionnaire. Body awareness was positively correlated with most of those that we investigated. And I asked a question whether people have felt physical sensations from subtle emotions, and there was an overwhelming yes, and it was also positively correlated with most. So I haven't got up to the multivariate analysis, but there are some clear variables that we need to analyse together, and that's where I'm up to now. But it seems that most people believe in extrasensory perception and psychic phenomena, and many have had experience of psychic phenomena, and most believe that it might be involved in empathy as extrasensory perception, warranting further research in this area, which I hope to do in the future. Thank you very much.